I also want to stress the bipartisan nature of this legislation. We have brought Republicans and Democrats together in a very historical moment. And what that moment is about is that the Senate this afternoon stated that we will not continue participation in the Saudi-led intervention in Yemen, which has resulted in the worst humanitarian crisis on earth. And that crisis is about 85,000 children starving to death, 10,000 new cases of cholera every single week, and the United Nations telling us that Yemen is on the verge of imminent famine, with the possibility of millions of people dying, all because of Saudi activities in that civil war. And today, what the United States Senate said in a very loud way, that we will not continue to have our military posture dictated by a despotic, murderous regime in Saudi Arabia, a regime which does not respect democracy, does not respect human rights, a regime whose leader, nobody doubts, was involved in the horrific murder of a dissident journalist in the Saudi consulate in Turkey, Jamal Khashoggi. And today, and it's a very important breakthrough, both progressives and conservatives have made a profound statement that 45 years after the passage of the War Powers Act, 45 years later, finally, the United States Senate has come together to use that authority for the first time and say that the responsibility for war, the constitutional responsibility for war, rests with the United States Congress, not the president, whether that president is a Democrat or a Republican. And I think the historical importance of today is not only moving the United States out of that horrific war, but is having the country see that their elected representatives are about to take back their constitutional responsibility on the issues of war, one of the most important functions that the United States Congress has. So I just want to thank my colleagues here and the many people at the grassroots level who have helped us pass this historical resolution. Well, this was, as Mike and Chris said, this was an historical vote because today we said to the world that the United States Senate does not want the United States of America to be participating in the horrific Saudi-led intervention in the Yemen civil war. We are not going to be a party to seeing millions of people starve to death in a war led by a despotic Saudi Arabian regime. Yes, sir.
You mentioned how momentum seemed to build for this in recent weeks, especially after a couple of briefings, first from Pompeo and Mattis, and then from CIA Director Gina Haspel. Can you talk a little bit about how this sort of moved in that way?
Well, I think two things. I think the media has, played up what is obviously very important, and that is that many members of Congress and the American people could not believe the cold-blooded, brutal murder of Jamal Khashoggi in a Saudi consulate in Turkey. That the leader of a country would actually murder a dissident in a consulate was something that was shocking, I think, to many members of the Senate, and made a number of them begin to rethink our relationship to Saudi Arabia. But I do not want to minimize the fact that I think many of our colleagues are also looking at the horror of what is happening in that country. It's not just the murder of one journalist. It is the starvation of 85,000 children and imminent starvation of millions more. Do we really want to be a part of that process? I think the combination of those two factors, the murder of Khashoggi and the recognition of the greatest humanitarian crisis facing this world, kind of led us to the vote where we are today. Look, I think what we did today is basically say that the United States Congress, in this case the Senate, is sick and tired of abdicating its responsibility, its constitutional responsibility on matters of war. So I think what happened today is not the end. If anyone thinks, my goodness, this is the end of the process, you would be very, very mistaken. I think we have woken up the United States Congress to its constitutional responsibilities. There are a lot of issues out there in terms of foreign policy and military policy that have not been debated on the floor of the Senate or the House. And I think what today is about is the beginning of a new day in terms of the Congress acting on military issues and foreign policy issues. Great. Thank you very much.